And hello again. Thank you for joining this webinar. I'm John Miller. I believe I know just about everybody that's online this morning. I am the owner, founder, and senior attorney. Senior attorney with Rock Solid Law and Title, which is now located back in Ponte Vedra Beach, where we started 31 years ago. If you're not familiar with the firm, we do a few things. We create plans to keep Florida and American families strong through trusts, particularly through wills and through other estate planning strategies and documents. We help people acquire and sell the foundation of the American dream, their homes, and also love representing entrepreneurial small business owners. My practice early on was litigation oriented, and it was business litigation oriented. And I found that I like the transactional aspect better, but I do love working with business owners. And in fact, that led to me wanting to know their families better, which led to the estate planning aspect, which leads directly into the tax issues that we tackle on a regular basis, and made me think that this morning's subject matter might be one that people are interested in. Perhaps you haven't heard, there's an election coming up in about 3 weeks. I'm joking. As my kids would say, it's a dad joke. It's like a joke, but not funny. Or a John joke, my siblings would say, my sisters particularly. I can handle that. It's interesting, I'm in my 60s now, and remember in the 90s when the catchphrase was, "It's the economy, stupid," among politicians, and that typically we Americans vote often based on economic characteristics of the parties as they exist at any given time. And obviously, the times have changed clearly since the 90s. There are many other issues that cause people to vote. I've never seen the pinnacle of my profession, the Supreme Court of the United States, bring issues into focus which appear to be causing large amounts of people to vote, early vote in some states. And other issues that you all are aware of. But today I want to narrowly focus on the economic, and more specifically than that, what might a continued majority by the Democrats or a majority of one or both of the houses of Congress by the Republicans mean to us? And not too surprisingly, I think there isn't a whole bunch of information available out there, big differentiators on this, but the trends that we'll discuss, I think, are pretty obvious if you follow politics a little bit and the general parameters of the parties. I will give a small disclaimer at the beginning. I am a fiscal conservative. So if that angers you in any way, well, you can buy me a beverage of our choice and we can talk sometime. I am a person who strongly believes that in America, and that the America I believe in is made stronger by us discussing our views and by opposing points of view and by the ability to compromise for the good of everyone. So just know that coming in. I am not taking any positions in this discussion other than my position is I want to help educate you or anyone who's watching the video of this on what these issues are and how they might affect your thought process in voting, but more importantly, how they might affect you post-election in terms of taxes. So with that, I'll launch a little bit into this. Oh, and I want to say, and I hope I remember to say it again at the end also, we are doing more or less a second in this series next month, when I will have a follow-up webinar regarding tax issues where I'll have a guest, a CPA in whom I have great faith and confidence. I really believe he's brilliant. And we'll talk to him not about tax laws, which might change from the election because this will be post-election, but rather what we might be thinking of in terms of our individual or our business planning broadly for year end and indeed for next year. So what are the issues that we ought to be thinking of? Well, clearly, tax deductions and tax incentives affect all of our finances individually. So here's the background. Typically, the things that we're going to talk about today are not passed in standalone bills or acts, right? They are passed as a part of a greater overall package. And after the November midterm elections, Congress is going to have to come to an agreement on the fiscal year 2023 spending bill. Right now, we basically have a as we so typically do, a short-term bill. I think it goes through December like 19th, somewhere in there. So we know that Congress is going to have to take some action this year, whether they would do something large or whether they will do something just to kind of kick the can down the road into next year, maybe partly as a result of what happens next month. So only because of that bill are we thinking that there may be a potential year-end tax package. I think I might have said in the verbiage I used to invite you to this, we never see taxes change immediately prior to an election, right? It just doesn't happen. But after an election, we will still have Congress constituted as it is currently. And as you know, that means that the Democratic Party has a very narrow control of both houses of Congress and the presidency. The president is not up for re-election, so we will have the same president for the next 2 years at least. And so the thing we're thinking about this morning is whether Democrats will continue to control the Senate and the House, or whether the Republicans will be able to control one or both of those. Broadly, we know that if the Democrats continue in control, we can expect to see some certain things that we're going to discuss that they have already put on the table. If the Republicans take control of one house, then we've got some gridlock. I actually have friends that vote in favor of gridlock. They think that the best thing is if the government doesn't function well. People call it gridlock, but it also puts both parties in a position where they have to negotiate. And maybe it's Pollyanna, but I believe that in some instances they actually negotiate toward what is good for we citizens. So then the other possibility is that the Republicans will control both the Senate and the House, which might embolden them to take more action on the things that they have said are important. Of course, we don't know. You guys follow politics. They don't always tell us what they're really thinking. And so all we can do is look at what various people have said and listen to economists, read their articles, which is what I do, and then try to piece together what might be the future. So either with the year-end spending bill or in a bill that would then, if not in that spending bill by year end, probably come after the new senators and Congress people are sworn in January. A lot of people believe we'll see a tax package or at least some changes. And so know that this year, no extensions were passed. And this included extensions to popular pandemic-related provisions like the expanded child tax credit. That has expired. That was enacted with the American Rescue Plan. And that allowed eligible families in 2021 to receive advanced payments of up to either $250 or $300 a month per qualifying child for 6 months, depending on the age of each child. Democrats and some advocacy organizations have pushed to reinstate the expanded credit, taking the position that there is data that shows that this credit has effectively helped reduce the child poverty rate. All right. Then if the Democrats keep control of the House and the Senate and pick up a seat or two on the Senate side, they would have more votes to reinstate this tax credit. Two recent tax changes are significantly affecting many middle market businesses. And as you all know, I represent owners of businesses and own one myself. This is the tax treatment of research and development expenses and the calculations used to determine the limitations on the deductibility of business interest expenses. I'm not going to get into that calculation because it's very complicated, but Republicans would like to enact research and development credits and bonus depreciation. Businesses beginning this year, 2022, must amortize their research and development costs over 5 years rather than immediately. And the Republican Party would like to see the research and development tax credit reinvigorated. The bonus depreciation, on the other hand, is a tax incentive that allows a business to immediately deduct a large percentage of the purchase price of eligible assets, typically such as machinery, bigger items, rather than write them off over the useful life of the asset. So the R&D credit actually has bipartisan support. That's pretty interesting, and could be a trade-off for the child tax credit, which we discussed above. Now, if the Republicans take control, their House Minority Leader, Kevin McCarthy from California, has vowed to block the $80 billion in funds allotted in the Inflation Reduction Act for the IRS. So you've heard a lot of discussion about what that money is for. Some would have you believe that they're going to hire a whole bunch of new auditors and come after everybody. Highly unlikely, in my humble opinion. As a person whose firm has to interact with the IRS regularly, they are broken. Some people think that might be a good thing, but we need to get information and interact with them. And that is a very, very difficult thing to do right now. So I don't know about $80 billion, but we need to get that entity functioning properly again for us all. If they gain control of the House, they've pledged to propose legislation to make some of the Trump tax cuts permanent. Those tax cuts were enacted in the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017. And many of them are set, many of the tax breaks for individuals are set to expire after 2025. So that's the magic question, is whether they will be extended past them. Republican officials will also push for scrapping some of that law's specific tax increases on corporations, which were designed to offset the cost of the overall cut in the corporate tax rate. Now, this conversation is more for an economist and is a bit above my pay grade, but I also understand that they have to take into consideration inflation in that calculation, because if they do scrap those increases on corporations, it may have the effect of not helping to rein in inflation. Other things Republicans would like to include would be doubling the standard deduction claimed by most taxpayers, and reducing the top tax rate paid by most taxpayers from 39.6% to 37%. Obviously, that percentage applies to the more well-to-do. Again, Kevin McCarthy's blueprint calls for enacting a plan to make permanent a 20% deduction claimed by firms operated as pass-through entities. That is sub-S corporations and is also LLCs, limited liability companies, that have elected to be taxed as a sub-S pass-through entity. And then there are half dozen other GOP bills aimed at tax incentives for startups, tax breaks on intellectual property that is transferred into the U.S., deductions on business interest, we referenced that one before, and other measures aimed at making permanent or enacting new business tax breaks. Of course, it's not entirely clear at this time what specific tax policies the GOP would pursue if they gain control of the House and the Senate. But remember, they cannot gain the executive in this election, so President Biden would still have veto power, and it is very unlikely that Congress would have the ability to override his veto. The numbers just don't add up for that. So we're hearing a school of thought that that if the Republicans take both the House and the Senate, they may wait till next year when they have a much stronger hand than they do right now in November and December, as we go into the lame duck session after the election. So that school of thought is saying, as I referenced earlier, we may just see a stopgap fiscal year 2023 bill passed, and then see any true revisions to the tax code occur early next year. So I see a few people who haven't been with us before, and so if anybody wants to ask a question in a minute when I am wrapping up, which I am planning to do, there's a question and answer about right there, and then there is a chat right there. I can see either one of those. Please remember in your question that next month we will have a CPA on board, and I may defer some of your questions to his brilliance if they are outside of my area of expertise. So I did want to say there is good news, and this is wonderful in my opinion for America. There appears to be bipartisan support for potentially major retirement legislation. I don't know the ages of everybody on this call, but retirement obviously is an issue for someone like me. And as a business owner, providing it for my team, right? So no matter which party gains control of the House and Senate after the midterms, the Senate Finance Committee chair and ranking member, Senator Ron Wyden, a Democrat from Oregon, and Senator, and oh my gosh, I can't believe this kid had to grow up with this name, or this man grew up with this name, Mike Crapo, a Republican from Idaho, recently introduced the bipartisan EARN, those are all capital letters, it's an acronym, Act. According to the release accompanying the legislation, the EARN Act is designed to encourage small businesses to adopt retirement plans and make it easier for part-time workers to participate in retirement plans. So I think that's good news for everyone all over. I know as a business owner, providing a path to savings for my team is important to me. As with healthcare, it can be expensive to the business owner, so it has to make economic sense for any business owner. But we all want to hire and retain excellent members of our team, and I think that if that EARN Act is what it is advertised to be, and I think having bipartisan support, there's a good opportunity that it could be, then that will bode well for all of our future. So I find it very interesting. I've done what this election could mean in terms of taxes before, I did it 2 years ago. And there was a lot more meat, I'll tell you, into the research and what there was out there that might make a difference. I just don't think taxes, although they're probably the greatest single expenditure in any of our lives, are the hot button for this election. And so neither party is really running out a big tax difference plan in advance of the election. Obviously, Republicans are putting forward several proposals which would benefit businesses and business owners. The big item on the Democrats' side is the child tax credit. So that's aimed at families and lower income families, of course. And then the great news is that they seem to be actually working together to try to help us figure out the retirement savings for our employees and for our business owners, because I think that's going to become more and more an issue. You know, the baby boomer generation is aging and retiring, and it is the greatest size of any generation we've seen yet. So they're going to really experience issues, and our country is going to experience issues on retirement funds and providing health care and places for those people to live out their days. I think that we haven't experienced in the past. So I look very much forward to learning more about the EARN Act, and perhaps we'll do a future session. Not seeing anybody raise their hand, so I guess I've been a model of clarity this morning, or else you're just completely bored talking about taxes. I always start some of my speeches saying, well, today we're going to talk about death and taxes, because that's what estate planning is all about. And hopefully I get a chuckle. Maybe it's because it's Halloween that the Grim Reaper is not as funny. Anyway, those are some of the things that are potential to change in the not too distant future, either by year end, or I would say more likely early next year. I'm not seeing any questions from you guys. If there are questions you have that are sensitive that you would not like to share with the group, feel free to email us at questions@rocksolidlaw.com. We are always happy to answer those offline. I would also ask you if there are subject matters that you would like for me to address in future webinars. Please submit those also to questions at rocksolidlaw.com. I will remind you one more time that we're going to have I think, brilliant economist and CPA as our guest next month. And we'll be tackling, ideas for planning ahead for businesses and individuals for taxes with an eye on the year end coming up. Well, you guys, it's been an absolute pleasure having you with me. I am John Miller at Rock Solid Law and Title, and I will do this for you. I don't know everybody's profession on there, but I'm going to make a double down my offer this morning. If you need, or you know someone who needs an estate planning consultation, I will do that consultation without charge as a result of your attending this webinar. Just mention the name of the webinar and that you attended it. Or on the real estate side, if you do the same thing, mention this webinar and that you attended it, we will waive a closing fee for your next closing. If you're a realtor, you can pass that on to your client. If you are selling a home, we'd be glad to do that for you. Not seeing any questions, guys, so I'm going to turn it back over to Clyde Orange, Lionel Richie, and the Commodores with Zoom. It's been great Zooming with you today. I'm John Miller, Rock Solid Law and Title.